Come on, internet. Don't let me down tonight. All right. Got Instagram. Going live in Instagram. It'll take just a second for the other ones to fire up. Okay, I see some people populating an Instagram. There we go. There's our countdown.
There it is.
Hey, everybody.
We're live.
We are live on Ask a Painter tonight with my friend James. We are going to get into a whole bunch of fun stuff tonight. I got some screen shares to show you his background, our industry, things that we like to do as craftspeople. But I want to welcome you to Ask a Painter Live. I am Nick Slavic. I'm the proprietor of the Nick Slavic Painting and Restoration Company. I'm also the host of this show, Ask a Painter Live. It is a weekly live Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram show where we talk about the craft, this beautiful craft we do, and the life of paint business entrepreneurs. So before we jump into it, a little bit of housekeeping, events coming up. This Saturday, I never have done a Saturday master's class, but I'm going to Brooklyn for Topline Pro, and we are doing a master's class at their corporate office, swanky, overlooking the river, super cool stuff. There's going to be a whole bunch of our industry friends there. If you can make it to Brooklyn this Saturday, we would absolutely love to have you there. May 21st, gathering of Ohio painters meeting in Columbus. I'll be there with all my friends from Ohio. Huge contingent there. 22nd May, Indianapolis, Indiana. 18 June, Cincinnati and Dayton, Ohio. 26 June, Coastal Virginia. 14 August, San Francisco. And the culmination of my year, early December, gathering of Minnesota painters here in my hometown with 150 of the finest contractors in the United States, all my friends from Minnesota. So contact your Sherwin-Williams rep or Topline to go to any of those things, and I would love to see you there. So everybody get all of your questions ready here for James. For me, we're going to talk about his background, some painting projects, and then we're going to get after it. So, hey, welcome, my friend. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Nick. Really appreciate it.
So you are the Arizona painter, but you're not in Arizona right now.
No, I'm actually in Hawaii. Actually this year I wanted to start traveling more and getting out there and working with other painters. It's the best way to learn things as well as, for them to learn things. Um, the biggest thing is basically the climate here is different. So I'm used to painting in really dry, hot temperatures. Where here it's not so hot, but it's a lot more humid. So it's like using some of the same products don't dry as fast here, things like that. So it's definitely a learning experience. Definitely, it's been great. I've been learning a lot about the climate out here, which is similar to some climates, coastal climates and stuff like that. So um, that's what I'd like to do. I like to just continue to education, keep myself learning, as well as pass any knowledge that I have on to other painters.
That's awesome, man. Who are you out there working with?
So I'm actually out here working with Sam, aka the
Oh,
Right Painting.
yeah.
Yeah. So he pretty much, I mean, he's doing some great things out here in Hawaii. Massive projects that he's taken on, and the ability to be able to get me out here and help him, and it all worked out for my schedule, and so it's been a great experience so far. And I'm going to be here until Friday, so we're going to finish the week out strong. I'll be posting some videos for anybody that wants to kind of see what we're doing. Feel free to ask me questions, of course, anything like that throughout the process. So
What type
if
of
not, as well as follow Sam too, the Right Painter. I mean, he's been doing this for 30 years. He's got vast knowledge of things out here. I've been learning a lot from him. So
I see Sam watching on Instagram right now. Sam,
yeah, you got me on
appreciate
there.
you.
Cool.
I don't know very many Hawaii painters, so it's kind of fun to follow people in kind of the extreme climates. I love the people in Sao Paulo. I love the people in Yugoslavia. The Irish painters chime in. It's just fun to see the different, what an actual job site looks like and things like that. So,
Absolutely.
what type of project you guys working on this week?
So right now we're working on pretty much a full interior makeover. a lot of oil-based primer. We got to block the tannin and staining from some of the wood. Um, Someone in the past put some latex over oil. So, today we spend a great majority of the day scraping all that off, sanding. We still got half the doors to go. I'll actually be posting a video a little bit later, probably showing a little bit of that process. So yeah, just, been doing a lot of spraying, a lot of, bagging up trim. There's some trim that's not getting painted at all. It's stained and clear coated. So we want to protect that from all kinds of contamination and stuff like that. So yeah, as prep work's 2/3 of the project. 2 days of bagging up stuff for a couple hours of spray. So
It's always fun. Like during the first day of apprenticeship, we go through some of my video SOPs, and I make it a point to show them a video that has not been sped up. It's not time lapse of what it takes to prime a set of kitchen cabinets. It's 4 minutes and 45 seconds. Once
mhm.
everything is done, all the sanding, all the prepping, the bagging
Yep.
off, you have all your negative air machines running. It's like less than 5 minutes, and it's just it
Yeah.
always just shocks people because we're painters. You think, well, you paint, and it's like, man, sometimes at the end,
Yeah.
most of us,
Yeah. 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 That's like, that's the last thing we do. So,
yeah, it's
but that's
almost.
cool. Yeah. I mean, I've seen your apprenticeship program. I respect it a great deal. There's not a lot of vocational
Mhm.
schooling out there for painters anymore. So it's more, just kind of have to learn from if you get, with a good company.
That's it.
Um, I was fortunate enough to, my father is first generation. He came to America in the early 80s and to New York. And so, he worked there, did a lot of work out there. Um, and then he was an inspector for the city for a while. And then he started his own business. And then we moved out to Arizona in 1998 because of the construction and the demand for skilled tradesmen. So my father came out here in '98, started a business, and just pretty much more or less a sole proprietor. He had a couple of guys work for him here and there. Never did anything on a too big of a scale. Had a couple of contracts with some of the hospitals that were constantly building out there, or I say out there because I'm in Hawaii, but but so he did that for a while. I just always kind of painted. I mean, he put a brush in my hand when I was at age maybe like 10 or 11. And so for me, like learning painting was like a martial art or something.
Yeah,
For me, it was kind of like, hey, this is just something I know how to do.
yeah.
Not until I kind of got older and then just started working with him and working for some companies and some general contractors with him and stuff that I started understanding a little bit more about like, oh, okay, hey, I got a really good skill set, but now I got to kind of learn more about the contracting stuff. And
Mhm.
so I took it upon myself to, I went to school, did all that for business. And in 2015, we LLC'd.
Oh, nice.
A family business. And so, my father at that point had his license. We just used it for the business and stuff. Um, and yeah, I mean, we specialize in exterior work. So, I mean, we do it all. We've done it all. We used to do a lot of cabinet work. Uh, Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure in the past, I'm not sure if it's still there, but Julie from the PCA had taken some of my videos on how I bagged cabinets, and I
Absolutely, yeah.
think we use them for some of the training videos that's offered through the PCA.
Yep.
So we used to do a lot of cabinets and a lot more interior work. Unfortunately, up until COVID, where we kind of were like, okay, we got to kind of draw back, we got to change up things, and so we just kind of full force went with exterior work and unoccupied interiors and new builds. And then my father, he was diagnosed with cancer in
Oh, I'm sorry.
2020. No worries, no worries. Yeah. So for 4 years, we battled that recovery from COVID stuff. He passed away last August. So I've had a lot of like things with changing the company over to me becoming the QP. Um, I actually, so the test in Arizona used to be different to get your license recently, I think in the last 4 years, the PCA got more involved, and so the test had changed. Um, so I was able to like keep my father's old license number and transfer it over to my name, but they required me to take the test. So I
Mhm.
took the boat test, I passed them and everything, and now everything's just kind of in the works of having the license put in my name and things like that. So that's a little bit of history of my family business. As far as social media goes, I don't really use it to advertise my family business.
Mhm.
We have other, it has its own website. We have platforms that we use for marketing and advertising. I got a lot of contracts, a lot of customers. My father's been doing this since late '90s. Uh, so I mean, the social media thing was also another thing I kind of started doing around COVID. I found myself with a little bit more time on my hands. And so I started sharing my work. I was just kind of like, as I explained, not a lot of vocational schools out there. And so I figured, I'll start sharing my work. And then, of course, I mean, I always want to keep it fun. I never try to take the social media too serious. It can be mentally, uh, you know, demanding. So I try to keep it fun. I do a little bit of different things on each platform. This way, it's not always the same thing. So this way, if you follow me on one and you want to see other stuff, kind of gotta hop over onto the other platform. So that's kind of where I've been at with as far as a little bit of my background. Um,
So your
so
your
yeah,
father, you said your father came over to the United States in the 80s?
yeah. So in the early '80s, he came over from Nazareth.
Oh my
So
Lord. Wow. What
yeah,
what
so
what
so
what made him
Israel.
make that leap, take that bet on the United States?
Well, I mean, so when I asked him, he loved old Western movies, and
Oh,
I guess my father and his family were like one of the first ones to have like a television and at their house back in like the '60s and '50s and '60s,
oh my
and so he
gosh.
used to watch like the old Clint Eastwood movies, and so he always like dreamed of wanting to go to America, and so um, he was my mother's father, my grandfather from my mother's side. So my mother's had already been in America for a while since she was like a young child.
Mhm.
Um, her father, my grandfather, went for a wedding there and my father ended up being at the wedding and found out that my grandfather had a couple of daughters in America. And, back then it was like, hey, take my picture, give her my address. They would write to each other. And so he did that for a couple of years with my mom. And then she, went there, they got married. And then he basically came to America and and then I was born a couple of years later. And I do have two other siblings. I'm the oldest of three.
Wow.
Um, so I'm actually first American born from both sides of my family. So I'm first generation born in America in the Bronx, New York. And so
God dang. What a cool story, man. Especially being able
yeah.
to work with your father and like what did you take away from your time together working with your father in this capacity?
Oh, so I the painting part of it was almost like a given. That kind of was just like every day we're just doing it in and out. You just you pick up things. You repetitive the process. A B C D. But the biggest thing that I enjoyed working with my father really, and it was mostly from 2015 until last August, because before that it was just kind of like on and off and stuff. But honestly, man, my dad just had some amazing stories. He had just some incredible stories, a lot of knowledge about history. Especially when it comes to that part of the country,
Wow.
or that part of the world, I should say. So just that was probably the biggest thing that I got out of it was just being able to spend time with my father, where like most people don't actually get to do that. So I would say if anybody out there is working, with their father or with their son or something like that, like really take the time to like talk about. your past, what you've done, where you've done, because at the end of the day, that's really the most important thing, I think. So
And
I have a son myself, so I'm
what a
doing that now
unique
with
opportunity too, because most people consider like, well, family, it's tough working with family. But what you don't hear a lot of the time is what an opportunity to spend so much time with your family. Typically when like you think about employees that would work for us, they leave their family. Maybe they'll get to see them in the morning, right? Or maybe it's just in passing over a cup of coffee and headed out the door. Come home, you have some dinner, it's an hour or two, and then you're kind of making your way into bed, give or take. And with family business, you get to sit there, and especially with painting, it's not like we're engineers and working spreadsheets and we have to lock in mentally. A lot of the times after you've done this, like you said, the painting is the easiest solvable part of this. You can kind of turn your
right.
brain off, go on autopilot, do your work, and then you're just open for 10 hours of conversation a day, which is really cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. And I mean, I'd be lying if I said we didn't have some downtimes and some struggles and uh, bumping heads.
Oh, listen, man, that's
But
with everybody, especially family.
you know, yeah. So and I mean, at one point, my brother was working with the company for a couple of years in between jobs. I got my sons worked with me, a couple of his friends. So it's like, and that's just the name of the game. That's just how it's going to go. And so yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons to everything. You have to outweigh it and figure out what's going to work for you. I mean, obviously, if strong family, strong bonds, you're going to be able to make things work. um so that's going to be the main thing is if the foundation of the family is good, then it should be fairly easy to work with each other.
You would hope so, right? But families are
I
family.
would
Humans
hope
are
so. At
humans.
least that's my opinion. Like I like to stay optimistic. So
A couple question on Instagram. CB
sure.
Painting and Reno. What did you see as what did you see as transitioning from a company in the '90s to now with how you advertise? So it sounds like they're asking. You've been in business a while. We both
Mhm.
have. I think we've seen pre-digital, pre-social media, and then we've seen post-social media. What did marketing and advertising look like way back at the start?
Yeah. So I mean, way back, at the start, it used to be more like phone book directories. So like everybody wanted to have their business start with the letter A.
Triple A
It'd be
garage
like
door.
AAA painting, AA plus, or something,
Yep.
something. So and that's funny because back east before we moved to Arizona, it was like something like that. It was like A
Yeah.
plus painting. It was his kind of my dad's little business name because it was just easy to find in the yellow pages. Um, and so that's one big difference is now versus then. You don't really have to worry about what you name your business. And so when we decided to name our business, we knew we were going to be high end quality painters. So I wanted to put my last name on it. Last names are very strong things in all marketing. So that's the other thing too. So I did, take classes in school on marketing and advertising and things like that. And, if you think about all these big, what's the word I'm looking for? Brands like Louis Vuitton, Chanel, these are all last names.
Yeah.
People are out there wearing people's last names. And
Chevrolet,
so
of
last
course.
names, right. So last names are really strong. And that's just even in history. I mean, if you go back in like, the medieval times and times before that, last names are very strong things. So when we decided to name the business, we wanted to put our last name on it because this was going to be the legacy for generations to come. I'm, like I said, first generation American born. So I'm the one that's got to start the generational wealth, if you would call it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so the painting business was that when I had established it in 2015. Now there are many platforms out there that you can use now for marketing. There's all kinds of like Angie's List, Nextdoor, Yelp, Google Ads. Obviously, I've tried them all. Um, some work, some didn't. Um, I've just come to find out, obviously, like even in the past, word of mouth is still the strongest way to get, work.
Yeah.
So we really put a lot into our referral programs.
Mhm.
So I have referral cards that every one of my customer gets two of them at the end of every project. If they send me a customer, they get a $50 gift card. The customer also gets 10% or 15% off of their project. And so that works amazing. Another thing that I know works in Arizona for us is so I work with Dunn Edwards Paints, and my reps, if I, I let them know ahead of time, they'll order it for me. They actually give me these door hangers that look like little brushes. I wish I would have brought one with me. And then I could just put my business card in there and we can hang them on doors. So
That's
when we go and we do a job in one of these neighborhoods, most of them are like homeowners associations. So the homeowners are pretty much sending out letters telling these owners that they need to paint their homes.
mm,
Um, and so we can tell that other houses are like faded, the paint's peeling, things of that nature. So while we're out there, I'll, a little bit of downtime, either myself or I'll send one of my guys or whatever to just go and put these on some doors while we're out there. So that works great because we're already in the neighborhood. Our signs are already in front of the house. Now all of a sudden, our little door hangers are on their door. It's already telling them what kind of paint we use. So that works great. And then, of course, you definitely want to have a website. You want somewhere where when people see this information, they can go and they can look and they can see, what services you offer. Who are you? Are you licensed? Are you bonded? Are you insured? What's your reputation? What kind of reviews do you have? Um, so yeah, it's a constant process. That's another thing too. After you're done with the customer, you want to try to get a review because that's going to also help bump your ratings on different platforms such as Google, and if you use Yelp and things like that. Um, so yeah, so that's the difference today between in the past. In the past, everybody didn't have Google search at their fingertips. You had to open up a phone book or the classified ads that came in the newspaper.
yep.
Those things still do work. You got to remember there's still an older generation out there that doesn't use the internet and the social media. So we do still put ads in some of these 55 plus magazines that go out either quarterly or once a month to some of the communities close by. So that's another thing that some painters can look into locally. If you have 55 plus communities, most likely those people are not going to be on the social media. So maybe look into some of the like local paper that they get or the magazine that might go out to their community because they're on a fixed income. They're looking for the coupons. They're looking for the discounts. And they're great customers. They really are. They're quick jobs. You can get in and out, good quality work. And just it's the everyday that keeps the machine moving.
And I think through line through all this stuff, because you and I, when we first started, it was literally a newspaper and a phone book. And you might have popped a little extra to get your logo in the phone book. That was like, big
Right.
money spent in Yellow Pages stuff.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
so
Oh
that was, yeah. So we've seen that portion of it. We've seen the advent of social media, and the platforms are always going to change, right? I mean, there was a time before phone books, there was a time before newspapers. Now Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all this other stuff. Then there's AdWords, and then there's LSA, and then there's this stuff out there. But the through
yeah.
line through, if you look back at all marketing, is constant reminders, constant touches, doing good work, and then staying in front of your clients, just being intentional about that stuff. And like you said, it's even with really, really big painting businesses, a large portion of most of their work comes from word of mouth because they have the even better opportunity to capitalize on all those clients that they're working for. And it is that you can't forsake all the people you're working for, but you also need to get your name out there to new ones too.
Right. Right. Correct. Yep.
And then
Absolutely.
MP Painting from Instagram says Instagram is the best form of free marketing. I would say anything is the best form of free marketing. You think about the quadrinity, you think about website, your Google listing, Instagram, Facebook. You could throw in a couple other sites, but like if when you want to talk about the big four of basically free, there you go. You just get on there, you post regularly, kind of like you're doing. You're taking a night of content, putting interesting things. Your content caught my eye, which I want to talk about next, but
Sure.
that's basically it. It's just getting your name out there because the background check, the word of mouth stuff. Now people Google you and they see you on social media and they're probably going to give you what, 20 seconds. They're going to search around. And if they
Yeah.
like what they
Yeah.
see, they'll pursue, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
All right.
You have a very short period of time to get their attention.
Well, especially when you consider, like, if you've ever seen well, I mean, we're both on TikTok, and I know how I use TikTok. I'll scroll, and when you actually look at yourself scrolling, you're actually scrolling kind of fast. Like, you're really, like,
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
breezing past something. You really dive deep into something you like. But I have teenagers, and if you've ever seen a teenager on TikTok, it's literally like a film strip. It's flashing in front of their
Oh
eyes, and it's
yeah.
like,
Oh,
how do you know when to
yep.
stop, man?
Yeah. I got an 18-year-old. I've been there. I've seen them. I've seen them scroll for years now.
It's just incredible how fast they go through that stuff. And if you think, well, if you think I'm going to have a 17 paragraph description about the theory of my company, it's like, dude, there's not a human on earth who's going to read that stuff anymore. Like, these people got a short attention spans, and they're being groomed to even have shorter attention spans. So it feels like you really
Yeah.
got to get some eyes fast, right?
Yeah. I mean, even our commercials on like television are only like 30 seconds to a minute long.
Yeah.
They got that much time to give you all the information that they need to give you. So same thing with the social media. You want to just boom, put it in their face.
And it's hilarious because people complain about commercials. Like, oh, all these commercials that's literally 2 minutes and 15 seconds, and people are like
Yeah, yeah.
agonizing through them.
Right.
uh,
Forwarding to them, skipping them.
uh, I want to talk about this job, man. So one bit of social media that, yeah, I saw. I couldn't figure out where I saw it, but I associated you with it, and you connected me with it. It was Titan, our beloved Titan. Titan is literally 50 minutes up the road, the world headquarters here, the greatest humans
Nice.
on earth. And I saw you spraying an asphalt roof. Tell me more about spraying asphalt roofs.
So spraying. So in Arizona, for one, so in Arizona, it's probably a little bit more forgiving. I would assume other like climates where it snows or like areas like that.
Yep.
uh, Maybe you want to like look more into it. I've
I
only
feel like
done a
water is the
few.
enemy here for
What's
painting
that?
a roof. I feel like water would be the enemy for painting a roof. Moist climate.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. So it doesn't rain that much in Arizona, so it's a little bit more forgiving to spray an asphalt roof. So Bear actually offers three different colors in paint specific for asphalt
Really?
roofs. Yeah, you have to special order it, but
Yeah.
they can bring it into the store for you. However, in this particular video, I actually used a Sealcrete, which is Surfico. Dunn Edwards carries a product called Surfico, which is the same exact product as Sealcrete. It's just, I'm pretty sure it's private labeled, so we could
Yeah.
get it at a cheap price. Um, so I used a 1 to 5 ratio with Sparta Shield, which is 100% acrylic paint, and basically just reduced it down, 1 gallon of Surfico to 5 gallons of the Sparta Shield, and that's what we sprayed on there. Um, it- there's no, I mean, there's no like real warranty other than just like my 2 year workmanship.
Yeah.
It was more for cosmetic. In Arizona, you're able to put 2 layers of shingle roof on top of each other before you have to replace the roof completely. So this was just more or less just to color the roof black. It wasn't really to like repair it or
Right.
like seal it or anything like that. Matter of fact, by doing the combination with the acrylic paint and the Surfico, it kept it more porous, almost like I was putting on a stain.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it was pretty. It was a little bit more transparent. So obviously I had to coat it. So I did a crosshatch technique, which also made sure that I got all the angles and all, so that
In
you're
between the
getting.
tabs, the edges, and yeah.
Correct, yeah. And at the time that I did that, I actually had Dane Carlson from Carlson Paint and Paper had come out to visit me and do an on-site and work with me, and he was out there for a week. And so while he was out there, he helped me, and I showed him my process of how I do those things and stuff. Um, but I know some other painters that paint a lot of like rooftops, even like the clay roofs out in
Oh yeah.
Florida.
Yep.
So it is an actual. I mean, it's a thing. There's a lot of like it's a little niche. If it's something that anyone is looking to get into, there are special paints for it. As I mentioned to you, McDonald's, I'm pretty sure back in the 70s and early 80s, before they went to metal rooftops, when they had the asphalt shingles, they
Yeah.
used to just put red coatings of, I'm pretty sure, like elastomeric or something, just, on top of each other. And those roofs would be like
Oh, I
this
was gonna
thick.
say, man, it felt like they almost took like rubber roofing stuff. I remember it was like glossy. You could tell they were shingles,
Yeah.
but they must
Yeah.
have coated the
Mhm.
living hell out of those things with
Yeah, yeah, I'm
gloss
I'm
red
pretty
paint.
sure it was elastomeric, just that, just tinted elastomeric or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, but so I mean, painting roofs is, I mean, it's a thing. I guess it was something. Yeah, I mean, it's not something I do very much. It's
Yeah.
probably like the third one I've done in 10 years.
Yeah.
Just because it's just hard to warranty stuff like that, honestly. And so, like, you just gotta, when you're talking to your customer, that everyone's got to just be on the same page about what you're doing.
Setting
So
expectations sounds like, yeah. This
yeah,
this
yeah,
feels
definitely.
this feels to me like, I mean, this is more substantial because you're actually adding a sort of protective and wear layer. You're not going to fix a leaky roof or rejuvenate
No.
bad shingles, but it almost feels like that there's a bunch of painters out there spraying grass green, and it's like, it's, hey, it's
Yeah, I've
not
seen
a
that.
temporary fix. It kind of is what it is, and maybe if you want to sell your house and do some patching like I saw in the videos, and then spray it all, like, yeah, listen, it seems like a very,
Yep.
pretty good alternative for a roof replacement, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that particular roof, like you said, yeah, they had repaired it. Everything was repaired, but unfortunately, it was like different color shingles, and so just for an aesthetic look, it was just kind of like, hey, let's spray it all black. And then, of course, we sprayed the the buildings themselves as well. But um, I'm not even sure. Those are like a lot of videos back too. So
No, I love that stuff because some of my favorite painters on earth to follow are our Brazilian friends down there. And literally, they don't own asphalt shingles down there. It's all tile roofs. So they're out there
right.
hitting those tile. It's a normal thing. You paint the siding, you paint the roof, one of those
Yep.
things. And all sorts of the crazy colors, all the systems. And I don't think I've ever seen a Brazilian painter brush and roll one of those tile roofs. It's all spray. So it's so satisfying to watch them do that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, and that's the thing, different products now. Like I said, like back in McDonald's day, I mean, they probably didn't have a product you could spray on the roof. They just brushed and rolled that, glopped it on there. So, but I mean, there's different methods, different processes. So, as long as you could get the job done, customers happy, and it's, within your standards of quality, then you're good to go.
So I wanted to talk about, probably a good time to talk about the differences of climate. You're in Hawaii right now, and again, it's
Yeah.
going to be a little warmer. It's going to be very much more humid. You're going to get a lot of the sea air and things like that. In
Hmm.
Arizona, you have one of the most unique climates. That area of the United States, it's hot, it's dry, and there's different considerations. In Minnesota, it snows in May. You know what I mean? And then it rains like hell, and then it's 100% humidity and 88 degrees, and then it's negative 40, and the weather tries to kill you. In Seattle, it feels like it just rains all the time there. Like they literally have 2 months where you basically don't even take a chance outside. All coastal Florida, all the different considerations. Um, I think what I know about Arizona is that the problems we have with cold that drive us inside, you seem to have the same problems with heat, where it actually limits you guys. You do a lot of exteriors? Is the heat a huge limiting factor, or something you have to take into account?
All right. So, and that's a great question. I've actually had other painters and other contractors ask me this. It just all depends on your mindset, right? So,
Yeah.
I don't let it limit us because there's interior work to be done as well, right? So, if we could spend our first part of our morning on an exterior project, say, so in Arizona, we don't have daylight savings. We stay the same time.
Hmm.
So, in the summertime, the sun rises at around 4:30 a.m., like
Yep.
midsummer. So, coming into months of like June, July, August, we're gonna have like sunrises at like 4:30 a.m. So we get started at like around 5:30 a.m., depending on, of course, the community that we're working in. If they have like sometimes you're not allowed to work before 7, so we have to kind of move around that. But 80% of the time, we can start around 5:30. As painters, we're not that noisy.
Yeah.
Um, so, we're not like banging around and this and that. So we usually are pretty quiet. And then by the time, 7, 8 o'clock rolls around, that's when we're firing up the sprayers and stuff like that. So we usually are within our good time limits. So we usually spend a good portion of the day, like maybe from 5 a.m. till about 11, maybe even noon on an exterior project. Once it starts getting into like the high 90s, then we might jump onto an interior project, finish out the day doing some interior work. And so what we'll do is we'll have like two jobs going. And then
Awesome.
of course my job is to kind of coordinate and delegate my guys and who I need here and who's better at what, and making sure I got the right guys doing the right thing so we're getting the most production with quality all at the same time. And that's obviously where my processes, my procedures all come into play, how I train my guys so that I can move them around. They know what they need to do even if they're in the middle of a project. And so that's kind of what we do. We just kind of we're just jumping around. And so it's to me to make sure that I can get my schedule in accordance to where we can work like that. Um, and so what's nice is when we'll have a project that we're doing both the inside and the exterior on the same project, those are great. So I'll try to schedule some of those in the mid of the summer so that, we're utilizing our time most efficiently, and then my guys get a reprieve. They love it. They love it. They're just like, it's instead of them like dreading, like, oh my God, it's so hot. They already know, like, 11 o'clock, 11, we're going inside, and so they enjoy it. I mean, obviously, we drink lots of water, stay hydrated, safety first and stuff like that. So certain days there'll be heat warnings, you gotta cancel the day.
Yeah.
Um, that's when you rely on some of the filler work that you have, some of those bigger contracts, maybe some of the commercial stuff where I could be like, all right, guys, go do that for today.
That's awesome.
So that's pretty much. So it's like I don't let it hinder us. There's painters out there that are just like, nah, I don't do exteriors in the summer, and that's just their excuse for not doing them. I don't know, but that's fine with me because hey, send them my way. I'll do
Yeah.
them. If customer asks me, I'll do them. Now with Dunn Edwards, just like anything else, there's different products I have to use in the summertime that won't dry as fast, so I can have a little bit more wet time for back rolling for whatever. Um, and so I'll make those adjustments. Obviously, my pricing. I talk with my rep. We get everything set up, and it just everything just kind of works as it needs to.
Nice. So I was at a PCA event and I was giving a master's class on cabinet finishing. And
Mhm.
there was three or four Arizona contractors. This is a lot of years ago, 6, 7 years ago. And I was talking about how never, ever, you should never, never, never caulk floating panel cabinet doors. And
I
I was
agree.
just like vociferous. But this contingent of Arizona people said, Nick, we can appreciate that. You're from a place that goes from 100 degrees to -40, and the humidity goes from 30 to 100%. You get movement in your wood cabinets. These Arizona guys said, we do not. We caulk every one of our floating panel cabinet doors
Mhm.
and it never moves. And so that was the only, and these are guys like, these are old timers in the industry that I looked up to and learned from. So that was a time where I was put in my place, rightly so. And I was very careful to just say never, never, never after that, because that taught me a lot about the different geographical differences of how we do this. Now, sounds like you and I are on the same page, which we don't do that, but I
Yeah.
understood that argument and I said, well, if anybody could get away with the least amount of wood movement, it's probably Arizona. So I don't know.
So because it's inside, probably, most people
Yeah.
kind of keep the temperature of their house the same all year round. However, there are snowbirds who leave during
Oh,
the summertime and they don't leave their air conditioning on. Their homes get 100 degrees. Unfortunately, the wood will expand. When
yeah.
they come back, if it's been caulked, it'll crack.
Yep.
It can become a mess. So I've seen it both ways.
Yep.
So I'd have to say yes and no. Yeah, maybe they're a little bit more forgiving, but I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
So you weren't wrong. Um, And then, but just like anything, we all know, painters have egos. They, everybody wants,
Oh, not
this is
painters.
the way
Come on.
it is. No, not painters, right? So, and that's so, people have been doing things certain ways, and sometimes that's just the way they want to do things. I've always tried to be open-minded. Um, I'm always open to trying something a new way. If it doesn't work for me, then it's just not for me. That doesn't mean that it's not a good way or not a right way. I mean, obviously, there's certain things out there like standards, certain things that you should do before you do other things to get the best finish and things like that. Um, so that's the probably the hardest thing out there is how to have those standards and how everybody should be doing, or this should be the base of something. And then it's tough, especially in the paint industry amongst, other industries. The paint industry is a tough one. So,
Yeah. But I do like, okay, you added a new wrinkle to this argument then, which is as long as you're not in a snowbird house, as long as you're in a temperature controlled environment where it's generally warm
I
and
think
generally
so.
dry.
Yeah, that's what that would be my opinion anyway. Just out of my experience, when I've seen them crack, is usually the case. There's also homes like so northern Arizona. We get snow. That's a different climate up there. So I'm not sure if that would apply up in those climates.
Yeah, I'm
It might
sure.
not. But specifically for the Phoenix area, maybe 50-50, I would say. Just as long
I,
as it's controlled. Yeah.
I like how you take a bent on learning, and I think you put your money where your mouth is with all your collaboration with other painting contractors, craftspeople, companies across the U.S., Hawaii, and other stuff. So, what have been some of the adventures you've gone on? Where have you gone, and what have you learned from all these other master craftspeople?
Sure. Oh, I mean, so many things. So, like, for instance, in Arizona, wallpaper is not really a big thing. However, my father used to do quite a bit of wallpaper back east before we moved to Arizona, and then he did a few bigger projects for some of the malls like the Neiman Marcus, off Fifth and stuff. The Barnes and Nobles, all those places have wallpaper. My father did in like the late '90s when we first moved to Arizona, early 2000s. But then he kind of stopped doing it. It's not a really high demand. We have a lot of the textured walls in Arizona, so the preparation to put wallpaper on some of the existing it's just becomes expensive and just like too much. So one thing like so Dane with Carlson Paint and Paper, he actually does a lot of wallpaper. He specializes in wallpaper and stuff. And so like I've been out there to New York and been to a couple of festivals and spent time with Dane and
That's awesome.
talked about wallpaper process and the preparation of the walls and what you're supposed to do before and just like those kind of things that I was learning from him. That's kind of like, hey, I don't even do that stuff. And then, he was talking about how um he uses Titan sprayers and how he used to use them a lot more. Now that he's doing wallpaper, he doesn't use them as much. And I was just like, well, hey, maybe you can use it to apply the glue. Now they got those
Mm.
Titan machines like that. You can apply the drywall mud and stuff like that. Maybe you can use it to apply. And it gave him an idea of like, oh man, I might have a whole new process of how I might do things when he was visiting me, we were talking about, it, and he was like, I might have to try that when I get back home on maybe a different process of applying. It might even be a little smaller setup versus how much he needs room to set up how he applies the glue now or stuff like that. So that's the biggest thing is just being able to like talk with these other painters, even here in Hawaii now, and just like how Sam his process and like for instance, we're using a urethane based paint to spray some beams. And so I have to, he had to direct me on like, hey, you got to spray maybe a little bit faster, use a smaller tip because the humidity out here it doesn't dry as fast and so we don't want to get any sagging and so so things like that. So like when he's giving me tips on how to spray and stuff, I have to readjust completely from like how I would spray the same exact beams in Arizona or even maybe what product I would use because of what time of the year I was doing it. So just those things are just like you can't learn that in a book. That's not it. I've never learned anything like that in a book. This is stuff you have to learn from other painters, hands on. And it's like, and this has to be their like, like Sam's been out here for years painting. So it's like he knows this stuff in and out. For me, it's just like a slow down for me. I'm like, whoa, this I got to take it all in. I
Yeah.
want to learn this stuff, and it's great. One thing I've always shared with like my son and my wife and stuff is like I've always thought about like there's many careers that you can do in other countries, right? But even if you were a banker, right, it'd be hard to go to like China and be a banker. I'm a painter. If I went to China, it'd be easy for me to be a painter because painting is
Wonderful.
like a universal language in itself. I feel like because I've watched these painters in Brazil and in all kinds in Asian countries, and it's just like the basis of it is pretty much the same. They're all using the same equipment, maybe different variations of it, but
Yep.
it's just like I can go anywhere in the world and I can paint.
Yep.
I can make money. I can, I can survive. I'll have food to eat. Um, so that's become real important to me, and it's really opened up my eyes that like there's not a lot of I could have been anything else, but becoming a painter allowed me to do this kind of stuff, and I'm really hoping that I do get a chance to like visit Brazil and Europe and all these other places and paint with some of these painters and learn more stuff because if you recall back in the day, they used to call us journeyman painter
Yep.
because you used to be on that journey. And so I feel like I've started to take that journey again. Whereas like I might have been at like a standstill of where I was at in Arizona and what I knew and what I was doing and my processes. And I think social media really opened that up for me to be able to travel and learn these things from other paint contractors, hands on.
Yeah, complete understatement. Like I think I was just talking with a past chairman of the board of the PCA, and we were recounting the last decade of the PCA. And the PCA is a great hallmark because it attracts the top 5% of all the humans in the industry. And we saw the arc between how the humans changed, how connectedness became different. I mean, all of a sudden in the last decade, you've seen this whole industry become younger, more diverse, and more entrepreneurial. And not a little bit, and not anecdotally. Like you go to industry events, if you've gone to them 5 to 10 years ago and gone to them now, they're completely different, and people are seeking out
Right.
this
Yep.
industry instead of just stumbling into it like we did. Like, hey, magically both of our fathers were painters and we became painters. Did we
Right.
explore every option on the face of the planet and magically we came back
No.
to painting? Of course not. Of course not. We were here. We found this place. We didn't seek it out. Now it doesn't mean we can't love it, but what I like is that it's attracting all the young, more diverse, more entrepreneurial people. But at the same time, for guys like us who have been operating in this industry, it almost like breathed a new life cycle into us
Mhm.
where the connectedness and what, just when we thought we knew everything and tried everything, you see like,
Yep.
oh my God, of course there's painters in Brazil. And the houses don't look anything like this. They don't speak our language. The paint is different, even though it's made by Sherwin. And you're all just like, wait a second. You took the whole thing from boy, I'm really good at this sort of thing to like, I have so much to learn.
Yep.
And I think there's two ways. There's the way that you did it, which is it sounds like it gave you energy. It gave you a reinvigoration and it just like lit a fire under you. I know that you and I have seen it in other people where it did not, though. It did sort of quench it, just like it was a big wet blanket over them and it kind of like
Yeah.
suffocated them. And I hate to see that because these are a lot of great master craftspeople, but it has more to do with their
Right.
personality than anything else. I don't know. We're going to change that. So, yeah.
Yeah. I hear you. I hear you. Yeah. Yeah. It definitely takes a mindset.
Yes.
So
um, Final question for you, my friend.
sure.
If you had something to offer people watching now, people watching the industry, a typical question that I like to hear other people's answers to is, what are you really good at? What do you think or know you do better on average than a lot of other people that you could offer and say, here's something unique, here's something interesting, here's something that I think I can add value to other people with. What would be that thing, and what would you tell them, and how would you tell them that?
Gotcha. So my, I would say my best aspect in the business is I'm a good manager.
Hmm.
So um, your team is only as good as the manager, in my opinion. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I what I'm really good at is knowing my guys' strengths and their weaknesses, and knowing how to delegate what they need to be doing in order for the work to get done without anybody feeling that they're doing too much or not enough. Everybody's doing what they need to be doing. Most of the time, it's what they like to be doing. That's usually why they're good at it.
Yeah.
Versus letting egos and pride as a manager get in my way. So if you watch a lot of my videos, you see I do a lot of the prep work,
Yeah.
because my guys are only as good as the prep work. And so I know I'm efficient. I know I'm pretty fast at it. So there wouldn't make any sense for me to put one of my guys that's slower, not as efficient to do it, and me to be waiting around to spray behind him. So I have no ego, no pride. Just because I own the company or I'm the boss or this and that, that doesn't mean anything. I'll get down there, I'll mask floors, I'll mask windows, and that just goes for all of my guys. And this is just the culture we keep in the office, on the job sites. Is it's more or less we're there as a team to accomplish a goal versus I'm your boss and you're my workers. So just I would say if one thing that I'm really good at is being a good manager and just being able to delegate effectively in order to get the job done, and knowing in my experience, okay, what's the process going to actually be on this project? Because it's not always the same. So you
Yeah.
got to kind of know, how are we going to tackle this so it's the most effective? Okay, so this is how we decided to do it. Okay, great. You do this, you do that. I'm going to do this. And then we already all know how the next steps go. Um, so yeah, I would say that's probably one of the things that I is my best aspiration, I guess, or I think that's the right word.
Yeah. So magically, you've been in business for a while. You get to travel. You do interesting things. You have a personality that makes you curious, and you're also a rigorous manager. And it's interesting as we look at the industry, especially from the PCA, 140-year-old nonprofit. We're constantly thinking about how to help the industry, what we can do to benefit the industry. The slug line is literally building better paint businesses. So what we found is that if you lump all the humans here into three oversimplified groupings, which are technicians, the painters, managers who manage the technicians, and then leaders who manage the managers and then the technicians, you see that there's our whole industry is full of technicians. Everybody can paint. We're actually really good painters, master craftspeople, right? And then people who start businesses are typically leaders. They're good salespeople. They like starting businesses. But then there's this glut of management. And management is typically not something that a visionary or a leader or even a technician likes to do. A technician, I've seen when you give somebody who is a very good master craftsperson, but doesn't have the personality for management, if you put them in a management role, they struggle a lot and they can actually
Right.
crumble and be under a lot of stress. But if you have the right personality, I'm a firm believer that our industry, that middle, that management there, that day to day looking out for humans constantly, hey, you start here, I start there. Here's our time budget for today. Let's do this. Support each other, correcting, coaching, mentoring. That's a thing that's missing, man. And surprise, surprise, you have some and you're good at this. So, yeah, no
Yeah,
wonder,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, my guys that work with me, I mean, I've had a larger crew. Obviously, COVID, we downsized a little bit and this and that. Right now, I probably work with about three crews. I got two main guys. They've been with me for like 9 years.
That's awesome.
Uh, I'm in Hawaii. There's still work going on in Arizona. I got my work phone here. I got the emails. I got one of my main guys there that I'm back and forth with, and we just got one project going right now while I'm not there. But obviously, no videos because I'm not there. But so that's just one of those that just goes under the table. But because they're not going to sit around for a week and not work. They got to work, and so yeah. So I mean, I'm
Good
I'm
manager.
running my business from Hawaii while helping Sam and learning and yeah. So like yeah, when it's definitely takes it's a tough one. It can be tiring and stuff, but you know there it's funny I'm going to say this. There's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Here I am in the rainbow state. So so yeah, I mean I've really been enjoying myself. I love the energy. I get, the great energy from the social media. I mean, I've followed you for a while. I've known, that you've been on board of the PCA. I'm a member of the PCA. Um, so yeah, I mean, this was great. I really enjoyed the opportunity to get on here, just kind of tell my story a little bit because, one thing I don't do on my social media is too much talking about, my past and this and that and stuff. So this was a great opportunity. I really appreciate it. Um, so maybe people out there that have been following me that haven't met me in person at some of the events and don't really know me have now get the opportunity to kind of, you know, what my background is, my experience, and what I have to offer, and hopefully, it's the first of many. So
Yeah, so I have your links to your social media accounts in there for the people who don't follow you. You reach a whole lot of people, and what I always find, and I really like to use the platform of Ask a Painter to multiply the force of other humans. And the content that a whole bunch of us put out is super interesting. It's informative. It can inspire people. It can educate people. But the stories of the actual humans are way more interesting than
yeah,
any of the painting content we put out. And I hope that this gets a little bit more out there. And certainly this will live in infamy or whatever the opposite of infamy is for a very long time now as a story. And sometimes
awesome, cool, right on,
it's a
yeah,
lot easier to talk about yourself through other people. I found that to be the same thing too. So I hope
sure,
that
sure, absolutely.
I hope that this does that for you. James, if people want to get a hold of you, what's the easiest way for people to get a hold of you?
I mean, probably just you can DM me on IG. That's probably the easiest platform to get a hold of me would be the Instagram. You can DM me on the other platforms. It just might take me a little bit longer to get back to you. But I noticed that the majority of questions that I get on Instagram and stuff, I'm able to answer fairly quickly. I also, or my email, which is the Arizona Painter at gmail.com. You can always email me there. I do check that pretty frequently, at least once a day. So um, I can get back to anyone with a question. I mean, I've had other painters ask me questions and stuff like that. So yeah, absolutely. So, question for you now.
Of course.
So, I mean, you do this every week. You have painters on here, and so what would be something that I could help you with, maybe, or like a question that, or have you asked them all, or is there like now that you know a little bit more, is anything that more that you want to get out of this, or like,
Yeah, I would. Now that I know more about you, I'm a pretty good read of humans from social media. We don't do all that many interviews on Ask a Painter. I really try to curate
gotcha?
interest, diversity, curiosity. I want big and small businesses, geographical differences, different points of view, different personalities, all sorts of ways that people like our industry stands in the middle and people come at it from 1,000 different directions. They have philosophies, and I like to try to get that variety so it's not all just the same type of things. And if I had an ask or a question that was more of a statement than a question is I would by looking at all your social media, I would really urge you to put out more stuff that the industry really suffers from a lack of, which is management. I
Okay.
think your content is amazing. I would urge you to put out more of a very unique, almost singular offering that you might be able to have about what does it look like to run 3 crews? What is your philosophy of that? I mean, maybe this is me just talking. I would be very curious about that because there's nothing more interesting than how humans interact with other humans and accomplish things together, the agency of others. And I just love that stuff. So, man, I would love to see a little bit more of that to learn from you.
Okay, all right. I think I could come up with a an interactive way to try to share some of that to where it's not so boring, because that stuff sometimes tends to be like a lot of like speaking stuff, and like lots
Yeah.
of people are
Oh,
like,
so you
eh,
say it might be boring. What I'm hearing is you might be a little cautious of putting yourself on it a little more in that regard. Yes?
I mean, maybe both, kind of, but not necessarily. I mean, I what I like to do with my social media is like not so much talk or this and that, but
Yeah.
like actually show, because
Yeah.
growing up, I was a very visual learner, and I learned more from hands-on versus like someone telling me how to do it. So that's just kind of where I lean with my content when it's more of like showing, but then I'll stop to just kind of like, a little instructional stuff. So as you were, you know, explaining what you would like to see a little bit more of, because and that's what I want. I want people to tell me, what do you want to see more of? Like I had someone tell me, oh, I'd like to see more of like when you make a mistake and how you fix it, because
Yeah.
not a lot of people are showing their mistake. So I put out a couple of videos of how, like, when you use tape, sometimes the paint comes off. What do you do after? Well, you go, you touch it up, and you move on. So,
Yeah.
and not a lot of talking, just more of like show. So while you're telling me what you'd like to see a lot more of, the first thing that comes to mind is a lot of instructional stuff. And I'm sitting here going, oh, how can I put that in a video without so much talking and more visual? And I think I did do a little series of like an exterior project where I did like a day one, a day two, a day three, and like what we did each day. As I think maybe I could do a little bit more of that, but a little bit more of like you were saying, where I'm kind of like, okay, we're here, we're doing this. This is what he's gonna do. This is what I'm gonna do, and this is what we're gonna do. Check it out. Okay, we're done doing that. Here's what the next step will be, or something like, hey, I gotta leave, so I gotta put so and so in charge, and now they're gonna be the ones that direct the rest of the crew, or whatever it is. So, yeah, I think I could do that. I think we can make that work.
Really cool series of videos. The ones you just mentioned on Instagram, they're top of your feed right now. A
I
multi.
have them, yeah, pinned up there.
So I really enjoy those things, and that could, I mean, management comes in many forms. It's managing a coding process, managing other humans, managing a business. So I think there's a big dearth of that. When I look at our industry, we are amazing painters. Comparatively to business owners, and you have wisdom far beyond what a lot of other companies have. And
Well,
selfishly,
thank you.
I would love to see more of that. So yeah, it's interesting. I was just at an event in Kansas City, and I asked how many people have been in business prior to COVID in 2020, and only about 10% of the room raised their hand, which is a very unique thing. Which is like when you're talking to 75 contractors and 90% of them don't know a time before COVID, like to even understand what it's like to put a newspaper ad in or yellow pages or to operate in that time between the housing crisis of 2008 and 9 and COVID, there's just not that many people out there that have that embedded wisdom. So I selfishly, I just want to see more from you. So
Hey, well, I will do my best, and yeah, like I said, hopefully this is a first of many, and hopefully I'll maybe see you at one of these PCA. I'd definitely like to make it to maybe Orlando or something like that here in the future. So I got some painter buddies out there in Florida too, so maybe I can make a little another journey out of it. So we'll see.
well, red carpet welcome from the board of directors if you show up in Florida. I would
Appreciate
love to
it.
shake your
Appreciate
hand
it.
in
Right
person,
on.
man. All right,
Appreciate that. Yeah.
James, you're the man. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. You enjoy your time in Hawaii, and yeah, hopefully we do this again, man.
Thanks again. We'll be in touch. Appreciate you, Nick. You have a great evening.
You too, man.
Alrighty.